Cześć, tutaj Tomek Kopyra z blogu blogkopyra.com. Hi, here's Tomek Kopyra from BeerGuidePL. We are in Stewart Brewing in Edinburgh. With me,
I'm Patrick.
And here you can see a brew house. So what is the everwood vessel for?
So, to the side here we can see the hot liquor tank. The hot liquor tank we use to hold all the water in the brewing process. That would be transferred to either of these vessels. This here is called the mash tun. The mash tun is where we let the grain cook. And what we want to do with the grain afterwards is collect all the sugars that are going to be in the water from there.
It's with a heater or only infusion?
So what we do is for the mash tun we do an infusion mash.
So you can change the temperature adding boiling water or something?
Yeah,
like
so
that?
we at any time we can change the temperature by adding more of the water from our hot liquor tank.
But generally you use one step.
Yeah, usually it's a one-step infusion mash. There are some specialty beers that they do at Stewart's that they will do a decoction. So I mean those are few and far between. It's really if they want to try something special. Otherwise it's a single infusion, single temperature mash. Yeah, and so moving on from the mash tun, just to the side of me here we have our hot liquor tank. All the vessels here are covered in a beautiful pine wood, which has somehow stayed very clean over the 8 years that Stewart Brewing has been going on. It's because of the great care that they take of them. And in our kettle, it's a 10-barrel kettle, and basically they do all of the brewing through here.
What is the heating?
The heating, so they have heating elements on the inside, so electrical heating elements. Yeah. Now, the heating elements are kind of fidgety. From time to time, there's 3 of them, and you can switch between 1, 2, or 3 heating elements at the same time. They will either be too much or too little, so it's kind of a balancing process that you've learned over the years of keeping it at the correct temperature and not boiling over and making this beautiful pine all dirty with the beer. So yeah, it's worked out for so long, and I mean you can just see the success that Stewart's Brewing Company has had because of it. So yeah, it's been really interesting kind of working with them. Yeah.
So we go to the fermentation.
Yeah.
Here we have fermentation in square tank.
Yeah. So this is a traditional British open top square fermenter, which has some unique properties to it in that it allows you to kind of deal with the fermentation as well as collect the yeast basically manually, as opposed to collecting from the bottom of a traditional fermenter. So as you can see inside here, we have some of the Stewart's Brewing Company beer actually fermented. As you can see, it's very bubbly, so you can see where that has been, moving around. It's the carbonation actually getting through. There we go. Actually, fermenting the beer and
great smell.
And creating that beautiful aroma that you find in a lot of the products.
Which strain of yeast do you use?
In Stewart's they use, I believe, a Nottingham strain. They are experimenting with some new strains right now, a saison strain to try and bring some variety, but it's always kind of worrisome having these open top fermenters in 2 separate yeast strains because they can contaminate the other strains and mess up your usual flavor characteristic of the beer. So it's a very experimental process at the moment right now.
They use new yeast or the same yeast for?
They use the same yeast for I believe 6 generations, and then they propagate a new.
From dried or
from wet.
From wet?
Yeah, from wet.
From some brewery? Or from
I believe they order it in from one of the yeast companies. Yeah, I'm not quite positive on that, but I believe that they do. Yeah. So I mean, they keep it fresh.
They can control the temperature here.
Yeah. They have in the back of the vessel they have a controlling mechanism as well as a pump in order to recirculate a lot of the coolant fluid.
Here is the first fermentation and a secondary bolts, or they transfer the beer after some time?
It depends on the beer. So they will, for these ones, they'll transfer, a lot of their beers will transfer straight from the fermentation vessel, the open top square fermentation vessel, to their conditioning tanks to actually condition. But certain beers, some of their new ones,
there are conditioning tanks?
Yeah, these are the conditioning tanks right beside, so it is a bit of an easy process.
With cooling, yeah.
Yeah, so they have. I mean, they're jacketed with insulation to keep them, you know.
How long it takes to first fermentation?
First fermentation is usually, it's about 10 days approximately, depending. It varies from beer to beer, but yeah, it's approximately that, and then they keep them in the conditioning tanks for 3-4 days, depending on when they need the beer to go out. When you're working in a brewery of this size, the timelines on when you need to get it out to the public is they're pretty tight. So they work on a very tight schedule, but it works out well for them. So
how many brewing a week? How many batches?
I believe they're doing about 8 to 12 depending on the week right now. Once the new brewing kit comes in, it'll be a 30-barrel brewing kit. They'll be kind of cutting that back, and that will
here or
no, so it'll be on the other side of the brewery, but it should be arriving in the next week or so.
Next week.
Yeah, so as long as they can get it,
it takes a few months to.
Yeah, as well as get used to the new kit and make sure that the beer is transferring from its original size to the new size and keeping the same characteristics. Yeah.
Here we see cylindrical tanks. Fermentation tanks?
Yeah. So these are, because Stewart's Brewing, the new Stewart Brewery here, it has just been put in over the last couple months.
They are brand new, yeah?
3 of them, the closest ones to us, are their older tanks from the old brewery. Still in great shape over 8 years, and the far ones down there, I believe there are 4, are brand new tanks just put into production, and they, in fact, I mean, a lot of their beers have really turned out well. I mean, there's small variations from tank to tank.
There is for 2 batches each, or for one?
2 batches.
2 batches.
Yeah, 2 batches each. And yeah, so I mean, they have basically a fermenter for each day of the week, so that they can move from one to the other. And just for spares, in order if they have some extra volume or need to ferment it for a bit longer, they have the open top fermenters as well to kind of deal with that capacity.
But because this is for 1 batch, yeah?
Yeah.
Because here we have 3 or 6?
There are 3 here. So
3.
Each one is its own vessel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they are bottling and filling the cask. Yeah. I've seen here steel kegs and plastic cask.
Yeah, so there are in Edinburgh there are pubs that will request steel casks. Generally, they'll use the plastic cask just because they're easier to work with. They are
lighter.
They're lighter. They can take a lot more damage
and cheaper.
But there are some very traditional pubs in Edinburgh which will request.
The cask, which you can see here, have some foil in it, or it's only plastic?
It's only plastic. So when we get them returned from the pubs, they have a night crew that works at Stewart's Brewing Company that will clean them overnight, and so that they're ready for the morning. They'll clean them, sterilize them, make sure that they're ready for the next batch of beer that's going to be going into them.
What about filtration and pasteurization?
They don't do any filtration or pasteurization. All they do is they find the beer. They add isinglass in order to drop out a lot of the cloudiness.
What about the bottling? There's bottle condition, this beer?
They have some beer that's bottle conditioned, some that isn't. It varies from beer to beer. And they have their bottling station, which is a very I think it was one of their original bottling stations that is in one of the other parts of the brewery. That it is it's very time consuming, and it really makes you kind of appreciate the brewing process and what goes into actually getting into bottles and stuff. So yeah.
So what interesting we can see more?
Coming from in the brewery?
Yeah.
I mean, there is
What's that?
That is the boiler.
Boiler for
yeah, just heating up the water. Yeah. So I mean, this is really the bulk of the Stewart Brewing Company's.
Here you have brew house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here you have fermentation, open fermentation. Here is cylinder conical tanks, and here are conditioning tanks for secondary fermentation and for conditioning.
If you want, the bottling station is right here if you'd like to.
Yeah, small one.
Yeah, very tiny. Like I said, it makes you appreciate the brewing process.
Yeah, here we have bottling filling machine. Here we have
our labeling machine.
Yeah.
Just here, right here, all wrapped up is our labeling machine. And yeah, I mean, it's everything.
What is the percentage of bottles and cask?
So it's approximately 1/3 bottles, and the rest will be in cask or keg, depending on what it goes into.
They use also kegs, yeah?
Yeah. So yeah, this is Stewart Brewing Company. It's brand new, and it's working well so far, and we can really just look forward to the new brew kit that's coming in. So yeah.
Great. Thank you for the interview and for your guide.
Yeah, of course.
It's great. It's what impressed me. It's very clean.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not usual. Breweries.
Well, we do everything that we can in order, to keep it as clean as we can. Because I mean, a dirty brewery will be a downfall.
Yeah.
So.
Especially with no pasteurization and so on, every contamination will be spoiled.
You just have to be extremely careful at each step of the process. Really, know what you're doing before you're going to do it. So yeah.
So once more, thank you.
You're welcome.